Good morning, students. Myself, Dr. Vijayendra Singh Tawar, Associate Professor in English. And presently, I have been posted at Government College, Gudha. The series of video lectures, which is being prepared by me. This video is meant for the students of English Literature, Class BA Part 1st, Paper 1st, and the topic on which we are going to talk is a sonnet composed by the famous poet John Donne, and the title of the sonnet is Death Be Not Proud. In this video, we will try to understand the explanation of the poem. Before we go to the text of the poem, let us talk about the poet. The poet, as you know, John Donne, was born in 1572 and died in 1631. We can say he was a contemporary of William Shakespeare and he lived in the Elizabethan age. He is one of the most remarkable of English poets. In the strict sense, he was a true Elizabethan who, however, led a most daring revolt against the conventional romanticism of Elizabethan love poetry. John Donne is a famous love poet, and his poetry is quite a contradiction, presents a contradiction to the poetry as compared to the poetry of other poets of that time. Moreover, he wrote a new kind of poetry. It is called metaphysical poetry. Now, this word, metaphysical, is very important. Actually, Dr. Johnson, while making a comment on John Donne's poems, remarked that John Donne affects metaphysics. That is, he wanted to criticize John Donne, that John Donne's poetry is beyond the understanding of layman or ordinary man. That is why he said or remarked it in a sarcastic manner. But it became a adjective, and any poem which is having the features of John Donne's poetry is called metaphysical poetry. In metaphysical poetry, if I would like to tell you in simple words, though there are many, metaphysics is a kind of physics which is regarded as difficult beyond the power of understanding. Or in metaphysical poetry, we can say that the poet who used to write emotions in their poems. Now, in metaphysical poetry, John Donne or any other poet, they presents both emotions and intellect. That is, wit and emotion go side by side, and in the end, it is wit which wins. So this is the one of the feature of John Donne's poems. Or his poetry is full of wit, satire, and conceits. He wrote songs, sonnets, marriage poems, elegies, and satires. Another feature of John Donne as a poet is he wrote with extraordinary frankness, candidness, and penetrating realism. He did not feel ashamed of presenting any kind of situation. He revolted against the tradition of extreme idealization of women. On the contrary, in some of his poems, he said that beauty and honesty, that is, no beautiful woman can be honest or faithful. He presents new kinds of situations and arguments in his poems. His poems express his passionate feelings. He balances opposite ideas in his poems in a fine manner, in a very effective manner. Now let us come to about the poem. The poem entitled Death Be Not Proud is sonnet number 10 in Donne's volume of Holy Sonnets Divine Meditation. That was volume of poems in which it was published. In this poem, the poet demolishes two popular concepts. Firstly, death is dreadful, and secondly, death is mighty. It is often believed that death is very horrible, terrible, and it is very powerful. Everyone is afraid of it. In this sonnet, the poet demolishes these concepts. The poet presents a new idea that death is neither powerful nor fearful. Generally, people believe that death is a terrible thing. But the poet says that he does not fear death. It is not terrible. It cannot kill the soul. Death is a slave of fate, chance, kings, and wars. The poem proves the thesis that death is neither terrible nor powerful. This is the central idea of the poem. Now let us come to the text. One thing every student should keep in mind, that this poem, particularly the text of this poem, is not part of your main book of poems. So I have given you the text of the sonnet also, and these 2 lines, 4 lines, etc. All the lines have been given for you. Now this is the first line. See, death be not proud. Death is written with capital letter. It means the poet is addressing it. And we know death is an abstract noun. It cannot be seen, it cannot be touched. So what the poet has done, he has personified death as a human being. And then he is addressing him. Death is personified and the poet is addressing him. And the first thing he calls death, that he should not feel proud of himself. He should not feel that he is more important than other people. Though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, it is also a fact, he admits, that there are some people in the world who feel that death is very powerful and death is very horrible. For thou art not so. But the poet claims that death is not powerful, neither it is dreadful. The students should note that I have given you the meaning of the difficult words. For example, the proud, that is feeling that you are better and more important than other people. Similarly, mighty means very powerful, dreadful, very horrible, terrible. Now the note, it is almost a kind of explanation of these 2 lines. The speaker, that is poet, you can say, personifies death as a human being and begins by addressing death directly. He tells it not to be proud. Death should not feel itself very powerful, despite its reputation as mighty and dreadful. Reputation means there are many people who believe that death is very powerful and horrible. This reputation is unfounded, means baseless. He paints a picture of death as an arrogant being and one who needs to be humbled, but he should be polite in its behavior. The speaker assumes the position of the one who must humble this being, death. He tells him that he ought not to be so proud, even though for generations people have feared death and called him mighty and dreadful. The speaker, however, with the voice of absolute authority, the finality, on the matter simply states, "Thou art not so." The poet uses the literary tactic of apostrophe or to drive home his point, to make it clear his point. Apostrophe occurs when a writer addresses a subject who cannot respond. Means apostrophe is a literary device. It is used by the poet to present his idea in an effective manner. Readers know immediately this sonnet will consist of one speaker who will do all of the talking and accusing of his subject. Death, though adequately personified, cannot respond to the accusation of the speaker. The speaker has accused death, but the death cannot reply. That cannot say anything. So these are the, you can say, kind of explanation of these two lines. Now, line number 3 and 4. Third line says, "For those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow." So overthrow, defeat, killed. "Die not poor death." Here, poor not in the sense of money, but in the sense of power. "Nor yet canst thou kill me." For the poet says, there may be some kind of assumption in the mind of the death, that death has overthrown, death has killed many powerful people, say the past, Arjun, Bhim, Ravan, Vishnu Pitama, like that. Die not. They had not died, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me. Or neither you have the power to kill me. That is the poet. The idea is death may come and kill a person physically, but it will not be able to kill a person or from the world in an absolute manner. In other words, it cannot kill a person as far as his soul is concerned. It cannot do any kind of harm to soul. Now see the explanation of these two lines. Here the speaker accuses death of having illusions of grandeur, that it remains in the kind of dream. He claims that while death thinks that he has the power to kill, he actually does not. Death cannot actually kill a person. The speaker first humbles death by telling him that his idea that he has the power to overthrow lives is simply an illusion. The death lives in a kind of dream, not in the reality. That he has no such power at all. Then, to further humiliate death, the speaker calls him poor death. It sounds almost as if the speaker is making fun of death for having lived under the illusion that he had any sort of power or life or death. Then he addresses death in a more personal manner, challenging him by saying, "Yet canst thou kill me?" Means you cannot kill even the poet also. It seems dangerous for one to threaten death in this way. However, knowledge of John Donne's background and ideologies can give some insight into the speaker's confidence here. We know John Donne is very famous. He uses wit, not emotions, to prove his point. Though everyone knows that physical death does indeed occur, means a person will definitely die physically. The speaker is challenging death in a different way. He uses the Christian theology and also Hindu philosophy of eternity to taunt death by telling him essentially, even if you take my physical body, you can never truly kill me. That is my soul. Death cannot cause any harm to the soul of a person, and neither it will be able to cause any harm to the soul of the poet also. Now the second quatrain. Second quatrain says, from rest and sleep, which but thy pictures be. Now rest and sleep, these two activities have been compared with death. Much pleasure up to here. Now see that if a person is tired and he takes rest, after some time he feels energetic and happy. Same is the case with sleep. They removes your tiredness and fills the body and person with pleasure, with happiness. The poet says, death and sleep are nothing but the pictures, that they are the copy of death. And from the copy of the death, we get pleasure. The poet then says, then from thee much more must flow. But much more, more pleasure. Then the real death, certainly the poet is confident, will give us more pleasure as compared to rest and sleep. And the reason is very acceptable, as he gives the argument that, and soonest our best men with thee do go. This is the reason that our best people in the world, they die early. Rest of their bones, again, that is death, leaves the body and the soul goes away, and the soul's delivery. And their soul is delivered, that it get freedom from the bondage of body. Now see the note. From these lines, in these lines, the speaker compares death to rest and sleep. Clear? Even uses the word pleasure to describe how one should feel about death. He has used the word pleasure. That is, after rest, after sleep, we get pleasure. Just as a restful night of sleep brings pleasure, so should death. The poet is confident death will also give us pleasure. The speaker implies that sleep is simply a small glimpse, that's picture of death. Thus, there is nothing to fear in death, for death will bring something like a pleasurable sleep. Here, the speaker says that the best men seem to experience death the soonest, while others have long questioned why it seems as if the best people die soonest. The speaker offers an answer here, suggesting that the best among men deserve to experience the peaceful rest of death sooner without having to endure the agonies of a long life on earth. The reason is the great people, best people of the world, they die early because they do not want to live a long life full of pain and misery. The speaker describes death as a rest of their bones and soul's delivery. Both these descriptions make death seem like a welcome friend who comes to graciously offer rest and peace and deliverance of one's soul from an earthly body where pain and suffering abide when lives remain. In this world where we live, we are living in a painful world. And as soon as our soul gets liberty from the bondage of the body, we get pleasure. Now the third stanza. In the third stanza, the poet gives another fact to show that death is not powerful. Thou art slave to fate. The poet says death comes to a people because of his fate, by destiny, lot, by chance, by accident, by kings. That is, kings can order, give death punishment to anybody. And desperate men, that is, there are disappointed people who can kill themselves, that is, who can commit suicide. So death can be by these ways. And dust with poison, war and sickness dwell. And where death is found, death comes in the company of poison, war and illness. Dwell, live. Means it appears as if they are the friends of death. These are the companions of death. And poppy and charm, a plant from which opium is made, it is a kind of toxication. Or charms can make us sleep as well. They can also cause sleep and better than thy stroke, and their impact could be better than the stroke of the death. Why swellest thou them? So feel proud. Then the poet questions, why, in spite of keeping, if we keep all these facts in view, there is no reason for the death to feel proud. Swellest means proud, not now here. Here the speaker takes on a stronger tone and begins to taunt death with more ferocity than he did at first. Means he is taunting, he is insulting death. Here he calls death a slave to. Death is not even independent, it is a slave to chance, kings, and desperate men. He tells death that he is not mighty and dreadful, but rather a poor slave who cannot even act on his own, but is driven not only by fate and chance, but also by people rich and poor alike. He then accuses death of having lowly companions such as lowly friends, friend circle. This is poison, war, sickness, illness. He has taunted death, telling him that he is not to be feared, but rather that he is a slave to the will of fate and man. And then that as a lowly slave, his companions are the even lovelier beings such as sickness and war. These accusations serve to allow the readers to feel a sense of power and victory over death. Means when we find that he lives in the low companions, we are very powerful. This kind of feeling comes into the mind of the reader. The speaker certainly feels authority over death, and he passes this feeling along to his readers when he puts death in his place by talking down to him. The speaker continues to taunt death even more, saying that all he brings is a little sleep, and he doesn't even do that as well as some other bringers of rest, such as poppy or char. They can cause better sleep than death. This comparison further portrays death as something not only weak but even pleasurable. The speaker questioned death, asking, why swellest thou then? Why do you feel proud then? He is asking why he is so puffed with pride when he cannot even do his job as well others can. These were the three quatrains. Now let us come to the couplet. In couplet, the poet says, one short sleep passed. After passing for some time of sleep, that is, the poet compares death to a short sleep. We wake eternally. We will be able to live forever. And death shall be no more. Means after death, it is death which will come to an end. Death thou shalt die. Means it is the death which will die, not the soul of the person. Now if we go to the reference and the context, the speaker concludes with the assertion, means he emphasizes the fact that death is nothing more than a short sleep that leads to eternal life. Means after that death we will live eternally. When this happens, death is over, death dies. With these final lines, the speaker reveals exactly why he has been taunting death so relentlessly. Although it is obvious that death is real and that people who experience death do not come back to earth. Means once a person is dead, he is dead forever. The speaker reveals his reasons for claiming that death is weak and easily overcome. He claims that death is only one short sleep, and that those who experience death will, with wake, eternally. Then he claims that death shall be no more. Finally, he tells them, thou shalt die. The speaker has not only told death that he has no real power over anyone, but that he will experience the end of himself when all wake in eternity. Death will be no more. They will enjoy it eternally. Thank you very much.